So I'm recording this for the people who missed out on the stream of A Whisker Away, so that way you can watch this introduction and watch it on Netflix on your own. Uh, A Whisker Away is the English dub title for Western audiences. The Japanese title of it is called Wanting to Cry. I Pretend to Be a Cat. Which is interesting because that actually changes the genre of the movie. And usually titles are not supposed to do that, and you're also not supposed to translate things in a way that you fundamentally alter it. Um, so and this is a question that you'll get in beginning poetry classes, is maybe intermediate poetry classes, is the first line of a poem part of the poem, or is it something else? Is it something outside of the poem that describes the poem? And the correct answer is yes. It depends on what poem you're talking about. You do have to use some sort of judgment and, deconstructive reasoning and go, well, what is this doing in the poem? And so here, it's really interesting because when you switch one title for another, the whole movie completely changes. A Whisker Away makes it kind of like a Miyazaki fairy tale fantasy where you're just kind of in everything that's happening is literally happening. But Wanting to Cry, I Pretend to Be a Cat says the girl is dissociating. This is in her head. And so that changes it from fairy tale to magical realism. And while there are several different definitions of magical realism, one of the most common and the one that applies here the most is it's magical realism as the literal or the figurative turned literal. So if you feel like you have butterflies in your stomach, that would be like, instead of a writer in magical realism writing butterflies and, oh, he has butterflies in his stomach, they would write, a moth came out of his mouth, which is horrifying. Which also tends to be something that happens in magical realism, is that you have this almost the pacifying of things to make things seem more cartoony, more palatable, more less horrifying. And sometimes the works then explore deeper into that horror, or sometimes they want it to be kind of a deeper level that you have to fish for. But I always do this. I lose track of my thought mid thought. And so I'm trying to look through my notes. Let's see. But yeah, so the other we're talking about horror and lack of horror, or hiding it, or concealing a deeper horror within it. I actually think this is what this film is doing largely, is that this is a sort of sadder, deeper story if you do think of it as magical realism, and it's all kind of concealed within this fairy tale adventure. So I kind of invite you to deconstruct this film and look at it from both title perspectives, whether it's Wanting to Cry, I Pretend to Be a Cat, and magical realism, or on the literal level. The people who watched it seemed to feel that the magical realism interpretation brought a much deeper and more interesting movie than the played straight A Whisker Away. And magical realism always kind of invites you to do that. It is a genre that has really developed out of deconstructionism, where you take a part of a work and you change it around and you try to see how does that work, how was that working all along. And so it's nice to get lost in the spell of fiction while watching this, but it's also interesting to think, what if she is dissociating during all the cat parts? Um, and uh, and I think ultimately it, and also trying to reinvert that inversion. So to go, if this is a metaphor or if this is all in her head, then what is the literal story? And when we were watching it, that seemed to be a good point of the fun, which was, okay, so what's happening now? What is actually going on with her? Because this doesn't seem possible. But I feel like after watching it a second time, I found a pretty good one-to-one as to what is happening in the real world versus what's happening in this fantastic adventure. And I do feel strongly that the film gives you clues to suggest that this is a dissociation. This is a girl trying to cope with a very difficult time in her life by dissociating. So last bit, my master's thesis, The Art of Being Expendable, is about, skipped a part. So another interesting part, not too interesting, but still noteworthy, is the idea that the main character is an anti-hero, but also is upbeat. That seems kind of like a contradiction of terms in the West. Like we have, you don't have the upbeat, main character who is an anti-hero. Usually they're like very edgelord, and they, even when pitching a TV show, I was like, this is the age in which children kind of have a decision to make about who they're going to be, and they're like, no, we want fucking happy characters, we don't want like depth, we don't want we want, and if you look at, say, like the first episode of Steven Universe, you can actually kind of see they bait and switch. Steven Universe is played off as like, oh, he's this happy, quirky guy, yay, right? And it really, I'm sure they did not pitch, and then he's gonna have depression and stuff like that. So the interesting part is they take the like Genki, healthy, like super happy anti-character, and then they make it, or super healthy, like, or the Genki happy character, and then they make her kind of an anti-hero. And it's kind of like the Pumped Up Kicks, like it's like a happy song, but if you listen to the lyrics, you realize, wait, there's something really wrong here. And that's an interesting protagonist choice. But yeah, my master's thesis was The Art of Being Expendable, and it's a book about how what you are affects how people treat you. And so if you've read a couple of my works, there's actually very key elements in my work that is in this movie, which is part of why I'm showcasing it. One of the works is Lagomorph, which is a pretty, someone who had read it in the stream had complained that is a very long short story. Yes, it is, but also it's free and online. The other one that I will read is The Kitten Machine. I warn you, it's a little weird, and it's inspired by a Southern Gothic novel that I never finished reading because school is hard. Kitten Machine. Yes, sir, every kitty should own a kitty, and every kitty will own their very own hypoallergenic kitty. That's right, through the marvels of science and my magical machine, These kittens are bona fide and certified to never stop purring when held in your child's arms. That's right, sir. I'm more than just a salesman. I'm a middleman of happiness. These aren't just for children. No, sir, kitties from this machine will reduce your blood pressure, reduce your stress, and reduce your taxes. Don't worry about training. These felines are as smart as a dingo with the GED and are as cute as a woman who's not your wife. Now, sir, can I ask if you deserve to be happy, sir? Of course you do, sir. And take it from me, if the good Lord has blessed you with $19.95 plus sales tax, then he has blessed you with the means of buying happiness. How does it work? Well, I'm glad you asked, man. See this man? He couldn't be any lower if he was a subterranean wiener dog. This child of God was caught masturbating a little too close to a little girl's window and was convicted by a jury of his peers. Now he enters the chamber. With this push of a button, he becomes a bestial, soulless feline, acceptable for children of all ages. And at this point, we started the movie. So, start the movie. And at the end, you can, I guess you can just come into the event page and post any comments or thoughts, and people who have seen the movie will probably want to engage, and we can, kind of rain check the whole experience, and hopefully we can do more things. All right, bye.